When I was at primary school in Edinburgh, um, an old woman that lived at the top of the road used to look after me after school before my mother came home from work. She lived on her own. I don't remember her name, but one of the last things I remember about her was that she gave me an old handwritten notebook and told me that it contained the secrets of magic. Now, some 50 years later, I've kind of rediscovered the notebook, and in fact, I don't think she said magic. I think she said mathematics, but my imaginative 6-year-old brain heard magic. Of course, I didn't understand anything that was written in the book, but recently I've been trying to learn it or understand what was going on, and it's fascinating. And this channel and from now on is me trying to teach anyone that's interested what was in that book. And the best way of describing it is it's just a slightly different mathematical language. All the maths is identical. It's just in the notation and the way of thinking about it is slightly different. Also, it's not advanced mathematics. It's pretty basic mathematics, although it does cover, from the outset, it covers what it calls the number plane, which includes imaginary numbers or complex numbers in classical mathematics. And so that for that reason, it kind of covers maths, high school maths, I think is probably the best way of putting it. And certainly, I think if I had learnt or been taught this from an early age, I would have found mathematics a lot more interesting and engaging, and B, easier to understand. So I'm neither a mathematician nor a teacher, but I'm just going to start talking and scribbling and see where it ends up. In conjunction with this chronological, let's call it a lecture series, there will also be worked examples of Scottish examination questions from Nat 5, higher and advanced higher. Probably one question per video, so some of them might be quite short and some will be longer, because I'll explain the difference between classical mathematics, which is what I'm calling what most of us are taught in school at the moment, and this angle, perspective on mathematics, which we'll call Numatican. So I'm going to call classical mathematics, we'll call SEML, which is kind of short for classical mathematical language. And then Numatican, or sometimes I may shorten it to Numi. Which is, you can just think of as pure mathematics. Again, simple maths. SEML, I'm going to split that into history of maths, which is, I kind of feel that's what we're taught at school at the moment, because there's a lot of teaching about the characters, Euler and Pythagoras and Grothendieck and all of these characters, and attributing the discoveries of the various mathematical sort of stages, if you like, is taught whereas I'm just gonna in Numatican, I'm just gonna concentrate really on the mental thought processes involved in understanding the nuts and bolts of mathematics, and a lot of it will be about asking you to imagine things in your mind and to organize and orientate. A lot of it is because everything in Numatican is orientated around the number plane, which is familiar to everybody. It's basically the XY axis, but all of the what I'm going to talk about can be kind of grounded, if you like, and orientated in the number plane, to try to make it all make sense together. Okay, so let's get. What I'm going to begin with here is just like a very quick history of mathematics, and basic maths, and also what I'm calling social maths. That's things, like how to work out like percentage reductions in costs of items and how much change you get when you buy something, all that kind of stuff that you sort of need to know in order to function in the world. And that's absolutely one of the responsibilities of a schooling system, really, is to generate individuals that can cope mathematically with kind of societal maths. Whereas what Numatican is interested in really is the study of pure mathematics, and so removing any application. So this you could also in here put applied mathematics. Numatican doesn't concern itself with application of maths. It's the pure maths itself. But of course, pure maths can then be applied in engineering and chemistry and biology and any other aspect, really, of life that requires a mathematical aspect. But here we're really interested in just pure mathematics, and in that sense, it's also it's very abstract is the word I was looking for. It's like, for example, a perfect circle only really exists in our minds. There's no way of drawing a perfect circle. We can draw pretty good approximations of a perfect circle, but a perfect circle doesn't really exist anywhere apart from in our imaginations. And the circle itself is also it's sort of one of the most basic and most beautiful kind of mathematical geometrical shapes or concepts that is right at the heart of mathematics. And we'll get to that. Okay, and I apologise for all my umming and ahhing as I go along here. I've got no sort of plan other than to try to teach you Numatican. So, okay, let's begin. I'm going to try and keep each of the lessons to about 15 minutes. So at 15 minutes, I'll just find an appropriate place to stop and then carry on in the next episode. So what I'd like you to do, we're going to just start with an imagination exercise, and what we're going to do is we're going to establish an origin. So an origin is it's a 0 point from which kind of everything comes from. We're going to close our eyes And in the darkness, if it's dark for you, I don't know, it's dark for me, or the light, or the nondescript blankness that is your empty mind. I want you to imagine a point. Now, a point is not, if you take your pencil and you put a point on paper, it's okay, that's what we call a point. But if you can see the point, then it's not really a point. A point is an infinitesimally small, vanishing space with zero dimension in any direction. If you imagine, if you take a piece of white paper and a piece of black paper, and you put the black paper on top of the white paper, then the border between the black and the white that has no thickness is a line. And we'll get back to that when we start talking about lines on graphs, but it has no thickness, that transition from the black to the white. Not the pencil line that you draw on a graph, which we use to approximate a line, okay? But a line has zero thickness. And then if you take two of those lines and you cross them, take a horizontal one and a vertical one, and cross them in the middle of your mind, then that vanishingly small point where the two lines cross is going to be our origin. And the horizontal line, which stretches from your extreme left to your extreme right, or vice versa, is going to be what we call our horizontal dimension. It could be the X dimension. It could be in Numatican, that is the imaginary dimension. Imaginary, again, is a term that's used in semal mathematics to identify the numbers that are orthogonal, if you like, to the real dimension, which in Numatican is a vertical dimension. So that line drawn vertically through the origin, from top to bottom, or bottom to top, and vanishing off into the distance, is going to be our vertical axis, or the real axis, or the y-axis. All of these terms work. But it's always orientated, as far as you're concerned, in your mind, as up and down, or forward and back, for the vertical dimension, or axis. And then the horizontal is always left to right. Now, so in our mental picture, we have a vertical and a horizontal axis. Now, those are reference axes. They're not drawn. They're like the faint lines on a lined A4 page. They're there to aid us, but they're not part of the information on the page. What I want you to do now is to mentally draw that infinitely thin line straight from the origin, right in the middle of your mind. Usually in front of you. I don't know what your perspective is. You could be hovering above it, or you could be standing looking forward at it, but the origin is straight ahead in your mental picture. And you're going to go up or forward from that origin point with a line, and you're going to draw that line halfway between the middle point and the top of your imaginary space. Okay? And then you're going to stop at that point halfway up from the origin. So the origin is in the middle. Then halfway between the middle and the top is where you draw this straight line. And you're going to stop there. And what you've got there now is you have a line that represents the number 1, a positive 1. Okay? And this is fundamental to how we're going to move forward, imagining the number plane and how numbers interact. But this unit length of line is the number 1. Okay, and then what I want you to do is to imagine that line as a piece of string. Okay, and to put a pencil end through the end of the line that's up from the origin. Okay, and draw a circle, a 360-degree circle, which we call 1 turn. Okay, Numatican, it's a turn. So you draw a circle, and that again, that circle line has 0 thickness. So it's like that boundary line between the black and the white paper. It has no thickness, but it's definitely a line. I'm going to draw that perfect circle using our pencil on the end of that piece of imaginary unit length string and take it right round to the top. Okay, and then we're going to take our pencil and we're going to remove it from the picture. And I want you just to take a moment to imagine that perfect circle with the center being the origin. The radius of the circle is length 1, so it's a unit. And we have the horizontal axis, or the x-axis, sorry, or the imaginary axis on the horizontal, running from left to right. And then we have the real axis running from top to bottom, or bottom to top. And that circle fits kind of half of the space, and centered at the origin. That is your unit circle. And we're going to use this to understand and to calculate and to mentally manipulate numbers and calculations and sine waves and cosine waves and all sorts of stuff as we move forward, because everything is going to be orientated on that number plane.